Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm sorry that the microphone didn't work out. That's disappointing, but I'm really glad that you're all here today for the rally against Mega-Dairies, the cross-border action. So in North Dakota, they just finished up the press conference a little while ago, and that will be available on YouTube this afternoon. They're gonna send us a link, so we'll share it with everyone once it's up. And so now it's time for our rally to start. We're really happy that the media is here. Thank you so much to come out and cover this really important issue that affects Manitobans that a lot of people don't even know about. So welcome, and we're going to do a land acknowledgement and then introduce ourselves a little bit, and then it will be the speaker portion. And after the speaker portion, we're going to have a little bit of time to invite whoever would like to come up to the podium, just say a few words if you're interested, if there's something you want to share with people, something that's on your heart, we invite you up at that point. And then once everything concludes, we will head down to Broadway to hold signs and just to do outreach to passersby, to hold signs for traffic and for anyone walking around. So that will be our rally today. And we'll open with the land acknowledgement that Kristy will share with us.
So before we begin, we acknowledge that we are gathered here on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Danae peoples, and the homeland of the Red River Métis. We also recognize that Winnipeg sits at the confluence of the Red and Assiniboine rivers, a place of meeting and trade for thousands of years. We acknowledge the harms of colonialism, and we affirm our responsibility to care for the land, the waters, the animals, and each other as we move forward together in solidarity. Introduce yourself?
Sure.
You go first.
My name is Dana Tong, and I organize Manitoba Animal Save. We're an animal advocacy organization based in Manitoba, and we focus primarily on animals that are farmed animals. So I actually started this issue of dairy farms is very close to my heart, as it's actually what kind of kickstarted my current activism journey. When I became a mom 10 years ago to my daughter, I would be up with her at night, and you know, I would be haunted thinking of all the animals that would have babies and not be able to keep them and take care of them and nurture them like we are able to. So I would think of all the mother cows that would have babies, and the babies would be taken away from them and their milk would be sold to humans. And I was haunted by that. And I knew that if I were a different species, that motherhood would be very different for me. So that motivated me to get involved and to start meeting people, and it led me to people just like you. A lot of people here today are people that I met back then, and I'm so happy to see you here today, and I'm just really grateful for meeting compassionate people, people who stand up for things, people who show up. That's so important. So thank you so much for being here today to stand together with us and with North Dakota for the animals and the environment, and really for human health as well. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming. My name's Kristy Sanchez, or Kristy Zmansky. I run Project Artemis, which is an animal advocates group. We started out due to the recent crimes against the domesticated animals. We focus more on that. Project Artemis is here to raise awareness with the high level of the animal cruelty in the province, lack of criminal charges. We attend all the court cases related to any criminal matters. I've worked with several levels of government. I submitted a 21-page proposal to the Minister of Agriculture. I co-wrote it with a few other advocates and Wab Canoe's assistant. We submitted it. We're still waiting to hear. Anyway, that being said, my heart and soul has always been more in the industrial animal industry. For a long time, I've been raised most of my life by a vegan. Although I never was. Growing up, I found myself advocating for all animals and realized very fast I can't do that while eating cheeseburgers. Animals are sentient beings. They deserve love, gentleness, kindness, and above all, they deserve life. The life of a dairy cow, it's exhausting, it's abusive, it's pain, it's being scared, torturous, it's inhumane. This is year 2025, and we're still ripping calves away from their mums, forcing insemination, using any means necessary to take the milk from a baby cow. My entire life I was lactose intolerant. My mom said for years, you're not lactose intolerant, you're just not a baby cow. As I grew up, I realized what she said and the impact that statement had on me. We're not baby cows. As babies, we go to our mothers and we yearn for them, we need them, we want them, we instinctively go to them looking for milk. A baby cow's ripped away from its mom and screams for days on end while drinking soya milk from a bottle until it's sent off to slaughter. How crazy is that? Yet it continues because man has realized we can do whatever we want an animal. We can make an animal do anything we want if we cause it enough pain. I'm standing here before you and I'm not asking everyone to become vegan. I can still silently pray for that. But I know the world isn't there yet. I can ask that we don't allow 37,500 cows to be pushed and crammed into a dairy farm where we steal milk from the mothers and slaughter their babies. I'm not sure how regulated this will be, what space they'll have, what food they'll have, where they'll wander, graze, and then the frustrations the workers are going to have dealing with 37,500 cows. We need to stand up. We need change. We need to hope that the Riverview Dairy Farms does not follow through. We need government to treat livestock as sentient beings. Until they do, these dairy farms will continue. And then everyone standing up here today either loves animals, loves the environment, or loves life and doesn't want to see the world destroyed by humanity. I hope you listen to what every speaker here speaks of, understands, respects the knowledge behind their voices. So yeah, just again, thank you so much, and that's it for me.
Okay, so we'll just do a little bit of background on what's going on. So Riverview Farms LLP is the company. They're a Minnesota-based dairy corporation, and they plan to build two huge concentrated animal feeding operations, CAFOs, in the Red River Valley.
Dr. Eva Pip, throughout her long and distinguished career spanning nearly 4 decades at the University of Winnipeg, Dr. Pip has served the community as a researcher, academic advocate for clean water. In 2024, Dr. Pip was awarded the King Charles Coronation Medal in recognition of more than 40 years of environmental advocacy and service to Canada. We're honored to open the speaker portion with a special submitted statement by Dr. Pip that I am trying to find. Okay, there we go. Our world today is regressing at a catastrophic rate due to the ignorant and irresponsible actions. Here, I just started. Oh, Dr. Pip.
If you want to. No. Okay. This is real life, hey?
We were organized, I promise.
Man, yeah, we were. Sorry, where were you?
Just the very beginning.
Oh, thank you. Ignorant and irresponsible actions of misguided politicians and the unbridled proliferation of short-sighted industry without regard for the long-term health of our planet and our legacy for those who will come after. The political turmoil that has now poisoned the entire world has tainted our values and our perceptions of stewardship, morality, and obligation. In the rush to repair, replace, and salvage the economy and financial self-sufficiency, we have seen hard-won environmental regulations emasculated, repealed, and cast aside on both sides of the Canada-US border. We see concern for water pollution, climate change, and the destruction of our global life support system swept away by the tsunami of commercial interests which have sprung and multiplied in unseemly haste, liberated from the burdens of accountability and rational consideration. We are inundated daily by new proposals and developments that have the potential to generate significant and irreversible repercussions for the environment and all life on this planet. We are at the mercy of decision makers who are the least qualified to understand the consequences of the decisions that they make. Those of us with the ability to think, observe, and question have the obligation to challenge what is foisted upon us in a rational and fact-based approach. The project under consideration here today consists of the massive confined dairy operations proposed in North Dakota. This is a concern because of the enormous numbers of livestock involved, combined with the gutting of U.S. environmental regulations and the fact that we are located downstream. The animal waste will be applied to cropland, where escape of nutrients and other contaminants is inevitable. We no longer have to prove that the deleterious effects of phosphorus and nitrogen on aquatic ecosystems. We no longer have to prove the vulnerability of precious groundwater aquifers to agricultural pollution. We no longer have to prove the suffering of animals confined to factory operations. Facts are facts. Water does not respect international and political boundaries. All of our life support systems on this planet are integrated and connected, and nothing happens in isolation as though it were hanging by itself in space. We have more than enough of our existing problems that impact our own waters, including the Red River and Lake Winnipeg. The lake is already overburdened from the adverse contributions of sewage, agriculture, deforestation, cottages, wildfires, garbage, water level regulation, and invasive species. We plunge with wild abandon into the pillaging and depletion of our limited and precious resources. We have relinquished all thought of the need for sustainability, restraint, and responsibility with respect for our planet and their irreplaceable life on it. We have become bereft of reason as we hurtle headlong into our get it before somebody else does mantra. We pursue ever larger and exponentially more damaging projects. We have no conscience, no morality, no compassion, no recognition of the sacredness of water, life, and Mother Earth. Let us pause now and take a look at the damage we've already inflicted and our inability to fix it, before stampeding to create more of the same. There are ways to go about things in an intelligent and responsible fashion, with respect for the environment and the living beings that share their home with us, and ultimately with respect for ourselves and our descendants. We cannot undo our mistakes. Dr. Eva Pip, retired professor, water quality and toxicology, University of Winnipeg.
Our next speaker is Kaitlyn Mitchell, an animal rights lawyer and the director of legal advocacy at Animal Justice, Canada's only national animal law advocacy organization. Kaitlyn joined Animal Justice in 2019 after spending more than a decade practicing public interest environmental law, working to address environmental injustice and environmental racism in Canada. We are very excited to have Kaitlyn here to speak with us today on the importance of protecting Lake Winnipeg and the threat that these two mega-dairies pose for it. Please welcome Kaitlyn.
Good morning, everybody. We're here today because our waterways are under threat. Lake Winnipeg is under threat. Indigenous peoples have lived around and depended upon these waterways for thousands of years, and in some areas, more than 10,000 years. They are vital bodies of water that Manitobans cherish and depend upon to this day. Lake Winnipeg and the Red River are also a critical habitat and food source for hundreds of species of fish and amphibians and birds, as well as mammals like beavers and river otters and moose that live around their shores. The east side of Lake Winnipeg is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Red River has been designated as a Canadian Heritage River because of its cultural importance and historical importance. The cultural, ecological, spiritual, and economic importance of these waterways cannot be overstated. Yet we also know that these waterways are already suffering from decades of cumulative pollution and alteration. There are many sources of pollution in these waterways, but of course one of the main sources is Manitoba's increasingly industrialized pig farming industry. We are a province of approximately 1.4 million people, but we raise over 8 million pigs here each year. With an average size of over 6,000 pigs, Manitoba has the largest pig farms in Canada. Pigs in our province produce approximately 765 million pounds of waste each year, most of which is liquid because we deny these sensitive and social beings the basic dignities of life, like access to bedding. Runoff from pig manure containing phosphorus and nitrogen continues to harm Lake Winnipeg and surrounding watersheds. The lake is at a tipping point and it cannot manage any more pollution or nutrient runoff. Yet we're here today because these two proposed mega dairy facilities would have a devastating impact on our environment here in Manitoba if they go forward. And we need to be clear, these are not bucolic family farms. These are massive industrialized facilities that will combine together more than 37,000 cows in crowded, highly stressful, and unnatural conditions. And since cows produce milk only because of their mothers, approximately 37,000 calves will be born at these facilities every year, yet they will be removed from their mothers and shipped off-site shortly after they're born. This is a staggering number of individual animals, and as Vicki and others will tell you, they will produce a staggering amount of waste that will find its way here to Manitoba, polluting our waterways. Under the Boundary Waters Treaty, Canada and the United States have agreed to nutrient loading targets, but these two mega dairy facilities will make those targets virtually unattainable. Manitobans, Canadians, and our lawmakers must take a stand against these cruel and irresponsible facilities and ensure our international agreements are respected. These projects are a stark reminder that the health and well-being of farmed animals is intertwined with the health and well-being of humans, as well as the ecosystems on which we all depend. We treat farmed animals like machines and ignore their health and well-being at our own peril. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Vicki Burns. Vicki is currently the treasurer of Hog Watch Manitoba, director of the Save Lake Winnipeg project, and many of you will know her as the former executive director of the Winnipeg Humane Society. It was during her time there that Vicki became an advocate for farmed animals, which then led to Vicki joining leadership at Hog Watch Manitoba, whose goal was to promote an environmentally, ethically, and economically sustainable hog industry. Vicki has been involved in vital work to protect and restore the health of Lake Winnipeg, and today she will speak on the environmental impacts of mega-dairies, specifically on Lake Winnipeg and the blue-green algae problem. Thank you so much for being here, Vicki.
Thank you, Dana. I really appreciate the opportunity, and thanks to all of you to come and hear about this. So I got involved in environmental work after I left the Humane Society, basically because of what I saw happening with the hog industry and Lake Winnipeg. And so this, what's happening in North Dakota, these proposed mega-dairies are a really amazingly awful example of where industrial animal agriculture is moving. And I'll explain to you, just in case, I think you probably all know, but I'll explain anyway. Aside from the tremendous animal suffering, the amount of manure that is going to be collected in these mega dairy barns is equal to about 52 Canadian-sized football fields at a depth of 20 feet every single year, that amount of manure, and it will have to be spread on the land around those facilities every year and not very far away because it's so expensive to transport that. And those facilities are within a mile or a mile and a half of the Red River. So the manure that's going to have to be spread, in a way it's like the manure here in our hog industry. It contains phosphorus and nitrogen, which are important elements for anything that grows. Humans, animals, plants all need phosphorus and nitrogen. And so it is used as a fertilizer here and everywhere. But when too much is applied, and whatever the crop can't use of the phosphorus and nitrogen that year, it then becomes available. I don't really need these, but whatever. It becomes available to run off in the spring when the snow melts, in the any big rainstorms like what happened last night in Winnipeg, or floods. And that's what's going to happen in North Dakota, as well as it happens all the time here in Manitoba. It runs off, gets into creeks, streams, up the Red River, and into Lake Winnipeg. And that is what feeds the blue-green algae that has taken over our Lake Winnipeg. That blue-green algae, a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it, contains very dangerous toxins. Really dangerous to humans, really dangerous to animals, and to any life that depends on it. We've got thousands of people who live in communities on the shores of Lake Winnipeg. We've got a vibrant fishing industry there. But these are all going to be negatively impacted. Now, one thing I want to draw your attention to today is it's kind of neat in the face of what's going on between Canada and the United States these days, that actually people like us, both here and in North Dakota, we've gotten together. We don't care about those political boundaries. We care about what happens to our natural environment, to this precious lake. And so it's pretty neat that there has been a joint press conference going on in Bismarck, North Dakota at the same time as this one. So I just want to conclude by saying that it's really important for our elected leaders, primarily the federal government, but also our provincial government, to pay attention to this, to ask the International Joint Commission to start, getting involved, because once it gets going, it's going to be impossible to stop. And Lake Winnipeg really cannot safely bear any more nutrients. Lake Winnipeg, some say, is at a tipping point. We need to stop it now. And so that's what I will end on. And thanks so much for your attention, and thanks everybody for all the work you've done in organizing this.
Thank you so much.
Krista Boryskavich.
Close enough.
I tried. Director of Animal Advocacy and Legal and Government Affairs at the Winnipeg Humane Society. Krista is a strategic lawyer and government relations professional with over 20 years experience in private legal practice and municipal and provincial government. Krista is the first animal advocacy lawyer working within a Winnipeg, Manitoba animal welfare agency. Please help us welcome Krista.
Thanks very much, and welcome to everyone. I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting us to speak today with our animal welfare and environmental colleagues. There's strength in numbers, clearly, and it's great to be here with everyone. So as some of you might be aware, the Winnipeg Humane Society is the oldest animal shelter and animal welfare organization in Manitoba. For over 131 years now, our mission has been to protect animals from suffering and promote their welfare and dignity. So when I was asked to speak today, one of the first questions that popped into my head was, why? Why should an animal welfare organization in Manitoba get involved in a rally about a dairy operation located in an entirely different country? And the answer to this question has many facets. First and foremost, the welfare of all animals is important no matter where they are located. The Winnipeg Humane Society has long spoken out about common practices in the dairy industry that need change in order to ensure that cattle are treated humanely and ethically in accordance with the 5 domains of animal welfare. Some of these practices that need change include the use of tie stalls, which often result in laminitis from an inability to properly walk and exercise, electric trainers to train these animals how to pass bodily functions in an appropriate manner for these intensive confinement barns, and the separation of mother and baby, which Kaitlyn has touched on, as well as Dana, which severs that maternal bond and causes psychological distress. But when it comes to the impacts that this proposed dairy operation will have on everyday Manitobans, animal welfare concerns are simply one piece in the puzzle. So in order to understand the entire picture, we need to view this proposal through a One Health lens. And for those who are unfamiliar with the One Health concept, I suspect most of you are, but I'll say it anyways. The One Health concept is a multidisciplinary approach that acknowledges that the health of humans, animals, and the environment are closely intertwined. Kaitlyn and Vicki have spoken very eloquently about the environmental concerns that this proposal raises with respect to Lake Winnipeg and the connecting waterways. The impact of manure and waste products from over 37,000 cows flowing into Canadian waterways may result in irreversible environmental damage to Lake Winnipeg, a landmark body of water that Manitobans have worked tirelessly for decades to preserve. And the impacts for human health are also unknown at this point. With nutrients and other pollutants entering Canadian waterways through the Red River, there's a possibility that bacteria, parasites, and viruses may follow. So this project is a prime example of the need for a holistic review to be undertaken through a One Health lens. Each piece of this review, animal welfare, environmental health, and human health, is tightly interconnected. And if even one of these factors is left unaddressed, all three will inevitably suffer. The Winnipeg Humane Society supports the province of Manitoba's request to refer this matter to the International Joint Commission for further review. But it's our position that such a review needs to be undertaken using the One Health analysis, and that such review needs to, as our own Manitoban Clean Environment Commission has stated from time to time on other significant projects, it needs to look at the cumulative impacts of the project. I'm going to cite a definition from the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada on cumulative impacts, which means that we need to look at changes to the environment, health, social and economic conditions as a result of a project's residual effects, combined with the existence of other past, present, and reasonable foreseeable physical activities. This examination of cumulative effects needs to include the entirety of the waterways impacted in both Canada and the United States, and must span a reasonable project timeframe. So we don't want to look at the impacts a year from now, or even 5 years from now. We want to look at them 20, 25 years down the road. Only if that is done are we going to receive a true picture of the impacts of this project and the reasonable likelihood of whether mitigation measures are sufficient or even possible. So we encourage Manitobans to stand with the province in supporting and requesting an international joint commission review that takes all of these factors into account. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Bayomi. Dennis is a president, co-deputy leader, and health critic of the Green Party of Manitoba. He's been an ethical vegan since 1993, over 30 years, and has a master's degree in community health sciences. Dennis will be presenting today on the connection between intensive livestock operations like the proposed Riverview Dairies and zoonotic diseases and the potential for another pandemic. We are honored to have him here with us today. Please welcome Dennis.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you so much. And thank you, Dana, Kristy, Morgan, and the rest of the team for organizing this very important event. And also thanks to all of you for coming out. Hopefully the clouds will be on our side for the rest of the time. As you've heard, my name is Dennis Bayomi, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the Green Party of Manitoba. I'll defer talking about animal issues and environmental concerns to the other excellent speakers who you've already heard and will hear following me. But I'd like to talk about an issue that's often overlooked and needs to be addressed. I have to confess though, I'm worried, very worried. And here's why. Two things happened in the past 18 months that are connected to the theme of today's rally. The first to do with science and public health. The second, rather ironically, a lot to do with anti-science and anti-public health. So let me start with the first event. On March 25th of last year, something happened that's never been seen before. On that day, the first case of avian flu or influenza H5N1 was reported in dairy cattle as part of a multi-state outbreak. Just a few days later, a dairy worker in Texas was infected. This was thought to be the first case of spread from another mammal to humans. And by May, several sporadic cases in humans who had contact with dairy cattle were reported to the Centers of Disease Control. Since then, and well before then, we've had leading scientists investigating this. Scientists like Dr. Michael Osterholm, a world-renowned expert in infectious disease at the University of Minnesota, and Dr. Angela Rasmussen, an American virologist at the University of Saskatchewan. One of the key areas of Dr. Osterholm's work is his research on highly pathogenic avian influenza, the very condition linked to infections in U.S. dairy cattle. Experts have predicted that the next pandemic, likely considerably worse than COVID-19, will originate in an animal, very possibly livestock, with a disease like avian influenza. The second event, though, is what really makes me worried. It was January 20th of this year, just believe it or not, 7 short months ago, when the 47th was sworn into office in the United States. Executive order after executive order were signed and continue to be signed, tearing apart the U.S. government like we've never seen before. The current administration has quickly decimated world-recognized institutions that safeguard the health of Americans, and indeed the rest of us around the world. The Centers for Disease Control, Health and Human Services, the National Institutes of Health, and top-tier research universities, among many others. According to Dr. Rasmussen from her July 5th Substack, everyone should be concerned about the pandemic risk that the destruction of our national capacity to infectious disease threat presents. We must unite against this administration's attacks on American health, science, agriculture, food security, and the economy. We should make some noise before bird flu gets a chance to do so. On Dr. Rasmussen's Substack just last month. So here's the thing. The North Dakota proposals with thousands and thousands of cows are huge industrial scale operations. Not farms, not barns. Who's to say one won't be the site of an H5N1 outbreak and ground zero of a pandemic? Public health experts agree it's not a matter of if another pandemic will strike, but when. So why are we rolling the dice on another pandemic? Remember this, governments will not act unless we force them to. Instead of preparing, our governments are setting the stage for disaster. That's why we cannot sit on the sidelines. Protests are important, lawsuits may even be necessary, but the most powerful step we can take is political. The Green Party of Manitoba is not afraid to tell the truth about intensive livestock production, pandemics, and public health. A movement that will take this fight into the legislature and makes sure science, not corporate lobbyists, shapes our future. So I invite you to join us, organize with us, run with us, and please visit us afterwards at our information table. We're only too happy to chat. And after all, I'm a vegan, I won't bite. Thank you all for coming.
Scott-Reid, freelance journalist and independent animal advocate. Jessica has covered animals, the environment, and food systems for major media in Canada and beyond for the past decade. Jessica has contributed to Sentient media since 2019, and her work also appears regularly in the Globe and Mail, Toronto Star, Winnipeg Free Press, and Corporate Knights magazine. Jessica covered the Riverview Mega-Dairy operations earlier this summer, which exposed the issue to a wider audience and led to increased community action. Jessica will share with us the importance of engaging with media to bring attention to these too often ignored issues. Thank you so much for joining us, Jessica.
So my name is Jessica Scott-Reid. I'm a journalist and I'm also a Winnipegger. So I care a lot about Lake Winnipeg and I care a lot about animals that are trapped in the animal industrial agriculture system. That's why I write about animals, and that's why I write about the environment for newspapers in Canada and for Sentient in the US. I know many of you here today, many of you who also are regularly with your ear to the ground on these issues, but there are many, many people in our communities who know nothing about things like new dairy factories being built along our waterways. And that's just what animal agriculture wants us to do, is to not know what they're up to. They want us to be unaware about what they're up to and the impacts that it can have on us and our communities. Even better, they hope that we won't care. That's what makes the job of advocates, people who do care, so important. And also the job of media, journalists like me, so crucial. Because when it comes to stories like this, of mega dairy operations possibly opening along our already suffering waterways, it's up to advocates to bring attention and up to the media to spread important information. Let the public know the facts. Let the public have their say like we're doing here today. I've covered this particular story for the Winnipeg Free Press in an op-ed entitled "The Lake and the Animals Can't Take Anymore." In it, I write of the ecological harms that existing factory farms are already having on our waterways, and that such farms are nightmares for animals. For Sentient, I have written and reported on the cross-border efforts being made to put a stop to this dairy project. This goes along with other important media moments, like the press conference, letters to the editor, and hopefully some coverage of this event today. We need all these forms of media so that stories like this don't go unnoticed. In particular, non-profit news outlets like Sentient, which is the only newsroom that focuses exclusively on factory farming and its impact on animals, the planet, and people are needed now more than ever. Media outlets that are unbridled by corporate sponsorship are the ones able to hold real truth to power, keeping industries like animal agriculture accountable and giving voice to advocates like you and animals who are also often ignored by mainstream newsrooms. I'd like to believe that some of you might be here today thanks to my coverage, or perhaps you saw it on social media, or you heard it from an activist friend. Either way, this shows that in order to keep the business of animal farming in the spotlight, not hidden away where they can do whatever they want, that we need to spread the awareness amongst all of us. We all have to do our part. Because what's really going on is that major corporate entities want to ravage ecosystems and exploit animals for profit, and they don't want too many people knowing too many of the details. But we're not going to let that happen. I and Sentient, we won't let that happen. We'll keep reporting the facts about this industry and about the people like you who are out here trying to put a stop to it. So thank you.
Our next speaker is Randy Tonnellier. Randy has been involved in farmed animal advocacy for over 20 years. He's a former member of the Winnipeg Humane Society's Board of Directors and will be returning to the board this fall. He's also the chair of the Farmed Animal Compassion team at the WHS. Randy also serves as treasurer of the Animal Welfare Foundation Canada's Board of Directors. He's a very busy man. Yes. We are excited to have Randy join us today. Thank you, Randy.
No problem. No problem. Busy but retired, so I shouldn't really complain. So thanks for organizing this event, you guys. It's a really important event, and I'm happy to see so many people here today. What I'm going to talk about just for a moment is the Winnipeg Humane Society, where I spend a lot of time doing advocacy. Some of you might know what the organization does, but some of you might not. So the Winnipeg Humane Society, as Krista mentioned, has been around for a long time. We were started back in 1894 as the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty towards Women, Children, and Animals, surprisingly enough. And back then, what we really focused on were farmed animals, cows kind of being a particular interest from some of the records we've seen. So as time went on and there were organizations that came up that looked after women and children, we became the Winnipeg Humane Society. And also throughout the years, as people kind of grew to have more pets and appreciate their pets more, we started to focus more on companion animals. But about 25 years ago, the then executive director, Vicki Burns, had the foresight to say we need to do more for farmed animals, and she created the Farmed Animal Welfare Committee. We were also very happy to see that happen, and thank you, Vicki, for doing that. So just a little bit about the work that we've done on that committee. You know, our name has changed over the years. We're now the Farmed Animal Compassion Team, but kind of the work we do is pretty much the same. And you know, over the years, we brought in speakers, national, international speakers, to talk about animal welfare issues and to educate the public on some really important issues. We did for about 10 years, we did the Quit Stalling campaign, which was bringing Penelope, a life-size replica of a female sow in a stall, out to malls, universities, public spaces, and just educating people about what actually happens on farms. And I just want to throw a plug in, we're doing that again, and you might have seen some media recently that went national, so thank you, Krista, for all the good work there. One of the things that really struck me when I was involved in that in the early days is as you talk to people in malls and universities and everywhere else, a lot of them didn't know this was happening, and they were shocked. Sometimes they were moved to tears, and it was really quite surprising, moving to watch. And it also kind of emphasized something that you know, we know the Humane Society, and most of you, I think all of you know as well, that this industry really survives in a conspiracy of silence. So that's why events like this here today are so important. So just one or two more quick things about our committee, and that is one of the other things we worked on back in 2016 was bringing Winnipeg's first Veg Fest to our city. And anyone who knows Veg Fest and has been there probably misses it. I just want to throw out a quick teaser that it's something that's on our radar at the Winnipeg Humane Society. A similar, perhaps, type event one day might happen, but we'll see. Stay tuned. Okay, but no, so why are we here today? We're here today as an organization to take a stand in solidarity with all of you in opposition to these two large dairy operations by Riverview Dairies. As you've seen and heard, or you've heard from others, they're going to result in an immense amount of animal suffering. They prioritize profit over animal welfare. Animals are often confined into small spaces and where they can't express their natural behaviors. And they endure repetitive cycles of forced impregnation, separation from their calves, and physical stress. So, like many of you today, I'm here today because I believe that democracy is a participatory process and that we all must be involved for it to work, and that we all must stand up for those without a voice. So I want to thank all of you for being here today, for showing your love for animals and for the planet, and for the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Our next speaker is James Beddome, Executive Director of the Manitoba Eco Network. Before joining the Manitoba Eco Network, James spent 10 years practicing as a lawyer, focusing on serving Indigenous governments, organizations, and individuals. This includes experience assisting First Nations to draft their own environmental laws under the First Nation Lands Management Act, and representation of tribal organizations at Clean Environment Commission and National Energy Board hearings. We are honored to have James here to speak on the importance of building broad and diverse coalitions to effect change. Thank you, James.
I think we should really say thank you to Danae and Kristy and Animal Save for organizing this today, because we were doing some lobbying in April and June on this that I'll address, but Animal Save reached out to us and we were happy to sort of coordinate and collaborate. So I am James Beddome. I'm the Executive Director of the Manitoba Eco Network. We're an umbrella environmental organization, so we represent about 122 different organizations across the province with a focus on protecting our ecosystems here in Manitoba, making a more sustainable world, as well as a number of individuals. And so that's our focus, is bringing people together, building these coalitions, recognizing we may not all agree on everything, but I think there's a few things we can agree on. We all can agree that we want animals to live their best life, to be able to exhibit their natural behaviors. I think we can all agree that we want to protect our watersheds and our waterways like Lake Winnipeg. I think we can all agree that we want these massive mega dairy operations stopped.
Yeah.
Now, the objective is simple. We want them stopped, but unfortunately, legally and jurisdictionally, there's some challenges. We are basically at the bottom of a massive inland watershed bowl that covers 4 provinces and 4 states. It's the second largest watershed in Canada. Obviously, Lake Winnipeg is at the center of that, and we've had other speakers talk about how threatened it is. I will address that, but what I want to highlight is what happens in North Dakota, what happens in Minnesota, what happens in South Dakota, what happens in Montana, what happens in Alberta, what happens in Saskatchewan, and what happens here at home in Manitoba. They all impact Lake Winnipeg. They all impact our watershed. And I do want to acknowledge there's a variety of factors impacting Lake Winnipeg. I think it's important. Loss of wetlands, sewage outflows, including here in Winnipeg, hydroelectric developments that use the lake as a massive reservoir, and notably here today, agricultural practices. And other speakers have addressed what we've seen from the massive industrialization of our hog industry in this province. Also highlight runoff from conventional fertilizers and pesticides into our waterways, pathogens, other bacteria. There's impact from agricultural practices. Obviously today, the focus is these 37,500 head over 2 operations. And just to put that in context, that would quadruple the number of dairy animals in the state of North Dakota right now. So that's how massive we're talking of 2 operations. And unfortunately, what we're hearing from our allies in North Dakota, so we've been trying to grow a broad coalition led by the Dakota Resources Council out of North Dakota. They're basically saying the state laws were changed under the previous government to open the door to industrialized agriculture. This is just the beginning. There's more to come, sadly or unfortunately, hopefully not, but we need to be prepared for that. We need to realize that that's what we're facing. Vicki, you did a great job talking about how Lake Winnipeg already has been identified as the most threatened lake in the world by Global Nature Fund in 2013. I'd like to tell you we've turned it around since 2013, but we haven't. The situation's worse. We're in a worse crisis, and bluntly put, Lake Winnipeg can't handle it. Putting that massive concentration of animals on the landscape is not going to be good for the local people in North Dakota. It's not going to be good for us in Manitoba. It's not going to be good for the animals, and it's not going to be good for the ecosystems. Now, excessive nutrient loads cause eutrophication. That's the toxic blue-green algae and a lack of oxygen in Lake Winnipeg. Literally, we are suffocating the lake. Now, there is, as some other people have addressed, there's an international treaty between Canada and the United States. It's the Boundary Water Treaty of 1909. And Canada and the United States jointly have agreed to targets in 2020. Unfortunately, those targets, as measured at the Red River at the border, we are nowhere close to what the agreed targets that both Canada and the United States governments agreed to through the International Joint Commission. So just to put those numbers in, the nitrogen concentrations should be 1.15 milligrams per liter. It's more than double that at 2.49 milligrams per liter. The total annual nitrogen load is 25% over the objective, just shy of 12,000 tons when it should be 9,500 tons, roughly. 1,947, 9,525 if you want me to be more precise. Phosphorus, which is the primary factor leading to eutrophication, the suffocation, and the death of Lake Winnipeg, it's even worse. Phosphorus concentration should be at 0.15 milligrams per liter at the Red River International Boundary, but it's nearly triple that at 0.4 milligrams. That's measured in 2022, the most recent year we have data for. That's 69%, nearly 70% over target. That's 2,366 average tons per year when the objective is 1,400. So we are nowhere even close right now with the current developments. These new massive developments will be, as Vicki said, the tipping point, or sometimes I say the final nail in the coffin. Now, once again, both these targets have been agreed to by the Canada and US government, which is why we are, one of the things we've tried to reach out is to the International Joint Commission. Now, the International Joint Commission, for those who don't know, is established under the International Boundary Waters Treaty. It has a number of experts, engineers, water quality experts, people that are given the job of investigating this, researching this, and providing recommendations. We have been trying to lobby across governments. I will say, I know I did get a call on Monday on an unrelated report the Eco Network released. You can go to our website and look at that if you want to read more about that. But they brought up this rally. I know Minister Moyes is actually even tracking this, and they have sent a letter to the International Red River Watershed Board. So there's some action on Manitoba, but I'm going to give you some disappointing news. Manitoba is the least important in this jurisdictional issue. The most important, well, because you said, Kristy, Riverview could just decide to do the right thing and give it up right now, but I don't know how likely that is. When we're talking governmentally, it's North Dakota. The state government of North Dakota is the one making the permitting licensing decisions, and so that's why it was important that we're doing this cross-border. If there's actions down in Bismarck, the local people there in Bismarck are taking action too to try to get the state government to do the right thing. Beyond that, we also need both the federal governments, both Canada and the United States. And Dennis, you're right, it's very difficult with 47 down there. I'm not going to be naive about the politics here, but I think doing nothing isn't an option either. And what we've heard when we did meet with Terry Duguid, is there's some interest. Certainly Terry Duguid has a lot of knowledge of the lake, but they feel, it's going to be difficult for us to push forward an international joint recommendation. So you need a dual reference for both parties to the international treaty, so both the federal government and the United States government, to refer to the IJC. Their feeling, I think, was generally that trade negotiations are going to suck up most of the energy and the oxygen in the room. I'm going to say that's not good enough. I think you can accomplish both, and I'm going to say protection of the lake is more important than our trade negotiations. And so we need to put pressure on the federal government as well. We need pressure on the United States government, federal government as well. I'm not naive to the challenges of that, but I think, sometimes in these movements, it is about bringing people together. It is about bringing unlikely and broad coalitions together to affect change. We don't have to agree on everything, but we can agree on the simple principles of what we want to accomplish. And, perhaps one of my favorite quotes I've used many, many times before is, never doubt that a small critic group of individuals can change the world. It's the only way that it ever does. Quote by sociologist Margaret Mead. That's what we're doing right now. We're building that broad coalition. So I want to thank you all for being here, and I want you to not just take this today, share posts on your social media, talk to your friends and your family, reach out to other organizations. We do have, what we want is simple, but we have a difficult challenge because of the interjurisdictional nature of it, and that's why the coalition and the strength in numbers is so important. So thank you for being here today, and I will turn it over to the next speaker, and thank you very much for Animal Save for organizing today.
You raised really good points about inviting ministers and reaching out to Minister Moise. We had reached out to Minister Moise to attend and to speak, in fact, and Minister Kristy and various other levels of government, and none of them can make it, unfortunately, but it's nice to hear that they're tracking it and that they are aware of it, and that it means something to them, so thank you. All right, we now have our last final speaker. It's Miss Debbie Wall. You may recognize her name from the letters to the editor section of the paper, as she has had dozens of them published over the years. Miss Debbie Wall is a longtime Winnipeg activist and has run in the last 2 federal elections as a candidate in Winnipeg Centre for the Animal Protection Party of Canada. Today, Miss Deb will share with us the realities of the dairy industry. Thank you so much for being here today, Miss Debbie.
Well, I'd like to thank the organizers for putting this rally together. A lot of work goes into these things. And louder?
Yes, please.
I'd like to thank the organizers for putting together this rally. There's a lot of work that goes into these, and I'd like to thank everybody who came out to attend. It's very important to support. You know, since I retired, I like to think of myself as working for the feds as an animal activist. The pay really sucks, but I love my job. And when I was asked to speak today, I knew I could approach this from various angles, because animal agriculture is one of the most destructive industries on the planet. It generates more greenhouse gases than all forms of transportation combined. It is responsible for environmental degradation, habitat and species loss. We are currently in the midst of the 6th mass extinction and losing species at an unprecedented rate. It is responsible for freshwater waste and pollution, ocean acidification and dead zones. It has negative human health implications, is giving rise to antibiotic-resistant microbes, and checks off all of the boxes for conditions that could or will lead to the next pandemic. But animal agriculture is also the most violent industry on the planet and causes suffering on a monstrous scale. So I'm here to do my job. I am here to speak for the cows. I'm here to speak for cows like Emily. She was so-called cull cow from a Manitoba dairy farm who was deemed to be no longer profitable because she had developed mastitis and lameness, which is very common in the industry. She was destined for slaughter when she ended up at the Winnipeg livestock auction, where she languished for days with no pain relief and no veterinary care, while her distended udder grew so heavy it tore the ligaments that held it to her body. I'm here to speak for individuals like Willow. Willow is restrained in a birthing parlor at a U.S. Mega-Dairy where workers had beat her with a pipe, not for any kind of discipline, but just for fun. And then they used a chain to pull her calf from her body before she even started having contractions. And this was at a facility that marketed itself as having high welfare standards, so it could charge a premium for its product. And I am here to speak for the hundreds and thousands of gentle souls who live short, miserable lives and meet their deaths at a slaughterhouse in obscurity, considered nothing more than units of production and known only by the number on their ear tags. Like all mammals, cows only produce milk to feed their young. So to the bulls who have their semen forcibly extracted by having a probe inserted into their rectum, which will generate an electrical current that causes them to ejaculate, I see you. For the cows who yearly are forcibly impregnated using an instrument that resembles a knitting needle, while a human has their arm inserted into their rectum to stabilize their cervix, who, after 9 months of pregnancy, have their babies stolen shortly after birth, and who for days will bellow in grief, I hear you. And for the calves, who are confined in isolated plastic hutches, their only protection from the elements, while they cry for their mothers, I feel your despair. And aerial footage of these mega-dairies shows row after row after row of these hutches stretching the length of a football field, and each one is imprisoned a bewildered baby animal who wants nothing more than to be by their mother's side where they belong. The males will be considered useless and slaughtered for veal, while the females will eventually take their mother's place in these crowded industrial facilities. And cows have been purposely bred to produce more milk than nature ever intended. And once their productivity starts to diminish, they are considered spent and sent for slaughter only a few years into a life that should span at least 20. And they will be trucked with no food, no water, and no rest in all extremes of temperatures in metal trailers, regardless if it's the blistering heat or the brutal cold. Now, like pretty much all animal use/abuse industries, agriculture is exempt from our cruelty laws as long as codes of practice are followed. And this is sort of like exempting employers from labor laws as long as they follow their own rules. And they have to be, because they could not exist if they were held to the same standard of care that those of us who have companion animals. And all of this for what? For so-called food that is so non-essential for our own well-being that it no longer appears as its own group on the Canada Food Guide. For a product that a large portion of society is intolerant or allergic to, it is actually linked to illnesses such as heart disease and hormone-driven cancers such as those of the breast and prostate. So, no, I don't want these dairies built in North Dakota, but I don't want them built anywhere. As Gary Francione has said, there's more suffering in a glass of milk or an ice cream cone than there is in a steak. And these animals may be exempt from our cruelty laws, but that does not mean we exclude them from our circle of compassion. There are so many wonderful plant-based options out there to choose from that are better for our health, better for the planet, and better for the cows. Because the only good place for a cow is a sanctuary. Woo! Thank you.
Amazing. So many good speakers today. So many, so much education and so many ways to get involved. So I want to thank you to all of our speakers today and to everyone who came out to attend the rally, to just be here today. Together there's a powerful movement being built against mega-dairies towards a plant-based, climate-safe and compassionate future. We heard many ways today to get involved, to speak out and to stop these operations from being built, and future ones even from being built. So please follow these speakers and organizations for more information and more updates. We will have an opportunity in a minute to have an open mic and to invite anyone up to the front who'd like to say a few words.
This rally is to share awareness, and this rally is a call to action. Many people don't know that this mega dairy is in the plans. They don't know the devastating consequences it will have on the mother dairy cows trapped there, on the environment, the waterways, and the air systems, but now you do. So we all have a responsibility now to educate others about this and speak out, however that looks for you. Maybe it's social media, presentations, letter to the editor, op-eds, articles, etc. But please use your voice and tell Manitoba no to pollution, no to animal cruelty, and yes to compassionate and science-based climate action. We'll now take our signs down to Broadway, well, if anybody wants to speak, and share our message with traffic and passerbyers. Please also visit our friends down on the front lawn who are tabling in support of this issue today. Thank you all so much for being here.
We'll move our stuff, and if anyone would like to come up to share a few words, you're welcome to. There's no pressure at all, but we'll certainly leave it open, and then in a few minutes we will head down.
Hero for hens, and it's pressuring Sobeys to keep its commitment of sourcing its eggs from 100% cage-free hens, which, you know, many of us don't want egg production to be happening at all. But this is sort of an incremental step, and we think it could have ripple effects. So I have a petition I'm hoping folks will sign that ultimately sends an email directly to the Sobeys CEO. He's going to be flooded with these emails. We're also having an event. It's called Brave the Cage on August 30th at Sobeys on Taylor. You can find it on Facebook. If you do sign the petition, I'll have your email and I can actually send you information. I'll just be over here.
Thank you, Tracy.
It's definitely one of the top 2 farm sanctuaries, I want to say. Yeah, so we have, I think, around 70 animals, horses, sheep, pigs. so many pigs. I just love them so much. No cows yet. But I just wanted to come out and say I've got all sorts of merch available for donation, in exchange for donation. So if you guys want to come over, say hi, you can put down your email address. We're starting a newsletter in the fall. We'd love to keep in touch. So come see me at my table. Thanks.
And she was posted on social media from the employee at the dairy saying, "I'm so sad to see that leg lifter is leaving the dairy today," and how heartbroken she was, and she wished there was a place for retirement cows. Well, I believe that's called a sanctuary, and maybe we should just not have dairies, period. Then we wouldn't have to have retirement for them. Anyway, sweet leg lifter was lifting her leg while being milked every day because she was in so much pain. It wasn't because that's what she did. She had a severe infection in her hoof that went all the way up into her bone, and she was still being forced to give milk with no antibiotics and no painkillers because the milk had to go for humans, so it had to be pure. Leg lifter was renamed by us when we saw the post. Her name became Hope, and her story we spread on social media to save Hope. And that day we mobilized a team in Alberta to actually find out where Hope was located, because we had no idea where this dairy was. And we actually found where she was. I'm getting goosebumps actually. And we found the auction place that she was going to, and we found a friend of mine in Alberta to proxy bid for us, and we successfully bid on Hope, and we were able to rescue her and bring her to a nearby. Hope's condition was very tenuous when we brought her to the farm. We had no idea how bad she was, and the fact that she had been left with no medical attention is absolutely horrific when you think about the cruelty of someone living with severe pain without any kind of treatment. With extreme veterinary care, antibiotics, pain meds, and barrier work, Hope is now doing well, and she has been adopted into that farm as a retirement cow. Her tags have been removed, and she is living out her best life now. Thanks. And Hope's story is not alone. Cows like Hope every day are being sent to the auction house, as we have discussed today. One of our cows, Serenity, she came to us from a dairy. She had a broken hip, and even though she had fallen and had a broken hip, the dairy still bred her. She had to have one more calf. I have no idea, our vet has no idea how she managed her hips to spread in order to deliver her last calf. We were unable to save the calf. We were told that he was already sent away. Honestly, I don't even believe that to this day, and that's something that really haunts me. But Serenity came to live with us, and she lived for another 3 years at the Little Red Barn, and we were grateful that she had that time just to be herself and an individual. But every day we see when we go to the auctions, we were just at a Hutterite colony on the weekend, and we witnessed the dairy. They had absolutely no bedding for the cows. They lied on wet concrete. The mums just are in a small space. The calves were standing there, again on concrete, no bedding. There was the tiny crates. Honestly, the things that we see, people would turn vegan yesterday if they actually could see, if it wasn't for the fact that all this is kept so well hidden. So use your voice in whatever capacity you can, share the word, tell your friends, spread it on social media, write letters, whatever you're able to do. Support sanctuaries, everything that you can possibly do to help animals. It makes a difference. Thank you so much for coming today.